यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। Hari Om, salutations to all. So yesterday we saw that the ultimate state is not only that it is not a state of absence, but it is the state of pure consciousness, Brahman. And not only is that ultimate state the pure consciousness, the entire world that is appearing also is only appearance of Brahman. It cannot be an appearance of nothing. The example given also was of the pot and the mud. So the pot is just a name. Mud in another form is called as the pot. The essential nature of that pot is that it is made up of mud. If that mud is removed, there is no pot. So in the same way, what is that which is the essential nature of this world is this pure consciousness. Existence. If existence, consciousness is removed, the world does not exist. So just like pot is only a name, it is a modification of speech. The essence is the mud. In the same way, in 229 we saw that it is not possible to show a pot after removing the mud. In the same way, just like the mud is the truth, absolute reality alone is the truth here. So that thought is carried forward in 230. Sad brahma karyam sakalam sadevam tanmatrame tanna tatonyadasti astiti yo bhaktina tasya mohaha vinirgato nidritavat prajalpaha. So here he says, Sad Brahma Karyam Sakalam Sadevam. This entire universe is the appearance of Sad Eva. Sad Brahma Karyam. It is the effect of that pure consciousness. Now one should remember this one important point, that Brahman is neither the cause nor the effect. By itself, Brahman is not the cause nor the effect. Because only something which is finite will become a cause or the effect, because it will change. A cause produces effects out of it, that is a change. An effect can further become a cause, which can further produce effects. So a finite thing can be a cause. That which is infinite cannot be the cause. But then why is it said here Brahman is the cause? Sad Brahma Karyam. Karyam means the effect. This whole world, Sakalam, this whole universe is the effect of Brahman. Now, if we see the if we see the snake, then what is the cause? Then we say rope is the cause. By itself, rope is not the cause. Rope has not produced any snake. In the same way, by itself, Brahman is not a cause, nor does it produce any effects. It alone is. But right now, we are not able to see that. We are seeing the world and we are asking from where the world came. From where the world came, if we see the world, then the cause of the world is the Lord, is Brahman. But by itself, Brahman is not cause. In Kathopanishad, Nachiketa is asking that question. What is that which is beyond the cause and the effect? Krita and Akrita. Anyatra dharmat, anyatra adharmat. Anyatra asmat, kritat kritat. Yat tat pashyasi tad vada. Oh Lord Yama, you please tell me that which is beyond dharma and adharma, beyond cause and effect, which you are experiencing now. Don't give me theory. That's the question of Nachiketa. So, Brahman is beyond cause and effect, beyond time, beyond causation, because cause and effect is logic. Cause and effect is in time. It is for finite things. Yet, as long as I am seeing the world as real, then the cause of it can be nothing other than Brahman. That pure existence alone is appearing as all this. So, Sad Brahma Karyam Sakalam Sadevam. All this is only the truth, Sad Evam, nothing else but the truth. Even the 5 elements are nothing but appearance of the truth only. So, Sad Brahma Karyam Sakalam Sadevam. Tanmatra metan na tadonyat asti. Again it is repeated. Tanmatram etan. This pure consciousness alone is this entire universe. Tato anyad asti. There is nothing, na tato anyad asti. There is nothing else. Like the wave, all the waves put together, the entire ocean is nothing but water. In the same way, this whole universe is nothing but pure consciousness. Nothing other than that. Again and again, the scriptures repeat that actually. And how strange it is that the mind still gets caught up in everything else except consciousness. It doesn't perceive that. It can get stuck in so many ideologies. Nothingness, blankness, or some one particular form. Or it considers this whole universe as real by itself without the existence of God. So atheism, it can get caught in so many things. Why? Because the right perception and clarity is not there. So here he says, Tanmatrametan na tato anyad na asti. Astiti yo bhakti na tasya moho vinirgataha. One who says, no, this world exists independent. Tasya moho na vinirgataha. That person's delusion has not gone. What is the example given? Nidritavat prajalpaha. Is prattling like a person who is sleeping. Sleep talking basically. Under delusion, one is prattling something, one is talking. Because a dream appears so real to that person, and under the influence of that dream, that person is talking away something. The subconscious mind is expressing, he is talking, not at all aware what he is talking. In the same way, this example is given here, that if somebody says that the world is real, then they are like children, not children, they are like people who are asleep and prattling in sleep. Why? Because that dream is so real to them. But somebody who has woken up understands that there is nothing like that. There was no dream. And even when the dream was, it was an appearance of my mind, which was the waker. Why does one continue to be in the dream? Because the vasanas are there. Karma is pushing oneself. One has not put enough efforts to detach. And considering the world as real, then one tries to work some way out, live happily here. Very few people actually want to wake up to the reality. Majority want to live a happier life in this world, considering the world as real. Vedanta pulls the carpet below the feet, saying the world is not real at all. What are we trying to seek? Stability, happiness, peace, in a world which is not real. Relatively, one may want to experience that peace, quietude, no doubt, so that one can turn within and realize the absolute truth. That much is the importance of quietude of the mind as a means to realize the unreal nature of the world and to wake up to the truth. That much is the relevance of peace of mind from spiritual standpoint. From other things that, okay, peace of mind is required for efficiency, peace of mind is required for harmony in relationships, those things are no doubt not denied. But from spiritual standpoint, peace of mind is not what one is seeking. That is the means. Selflessness, sadhana, quietening the mind is just the means to realize that this is not real. The goal is that. So when one says moksha, moksha is not a state to be achieved sometime later. Moksha is freedom from delusion right here and now, and my perception is wrong. I am thinking this world is real. But it is not real in the way in which I am thinking. It is real in the way that it is only the manifestation of the reality. Brahman alone is appearing as all this, and I don't see Brahman. Like yesterday we saw the example of the ornaments. If I don't see the gold and I am stuck in the name and the form and the quality of workmanship, etc., I miss the point. That is the way it is, that Brahman is appearing as the whole universe, and if I see the world as an appearance of Brahman, I am actually seeing only Brahman and not the world. When I am seeing the pot, I am actually seeing mud alone. But if I don't keep in mind that this is mud, and I think that this is a pot separate from this mud, and I don't know what is this mud, then there is delusion. So moksha is freedom from this delusion, to think that the world is independent of Brahman. The world exists as real by itself. And that is just because I am seeing it. That is a limitation of the senses. When I withdraw from the senses, where is the world? There is no world. So it is that to realize this is the very goal. It is not that I have to live peacefully in this world hereafter, happily ever after. Cannot happen in the world. In the sense of permanent happiness, one cannot achieve. Temporary peace, quietude to turn within, that is still possible. But the goal of a Vedantic student is this, to realize that Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya and Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. These three lines. Brahman alone is the truth. Jagat actually doesn't exist, but today I am not able to understand that, so it is a Jagat Mithya. It is an illusion. The Satya is appearing as the Mithya. Brahman is appearing as this illusion. And who is that Brahman? Not different from me, the Jiva. Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. So Vedantic student is trying to experience this truth and be free from ignorance. Moksha is that, freedom from ignorance and consequent delusion. Hence here he says, Asti iti yo bhakti. Whoever says no, the world exists independent by itself, it has its own reality. Tasya moho na vinirgata. That person's delusion has not gone. So the challenge is, while I am seeing it, I have to change my perception. Now the sadhana is not to say this does not exist. The sadhana is to say that this appears as Brahman. This is an appearance of Brahman. That is a sadhana. Because if I say this does not exist, there will be confusion, because as I am seeing it, I am falsifying it. So in the state of withdrawal, one can say nothing exists. While living in the world, better to say Brahman is alone appearing as this whole thing. The devotee says all this is the manifestation of the divine. So all this is worshipful. And so surrender the ego and serve. Whichever method one takes, it will come to this point that one will come to wake up to this truth that Sadbrahma Karyam Sakalam Sadevam. Brahman alone is. Continuing that, he says, 231. Brahmai Vedam Vishwamityeva Vani Shrauti brute tharvanishtha varishtha tasmadetat brahma matram hi vishwam nadhishthanaad bhinnata ropitasya. So he says here that Brahmai Vedam Vishwamidam Ityeva Vani. Vishwam Ityeva Vani. Brahman alone is this universe, is the declaration of whom? Shrauti Brute, of the scriptures. See, Shruti Pramana is very important for us in Sanatana Dharma. Shruti is the Vedas. In detail, we have done this in the second verse of Vivek Chudamani when it was said that rare it is to come across the study of the Vedas. One of the rare blessings of human life is the Tasmad Vaidika Dharma Marga Parata. The study of the Vedas and the ability to walk the path indicated by the Vedas. So at that time we had discussed that why the Shruti is so important to us. Because it is a revelation and it is describing universal principles. It is not a composition of human being. The mantras are revealed as it is. So it is not that an intuitive insight is attained by the Rishi and then the Rishi puts it in his or her language. As it is, the mantra is revealed to the Rishi. Like the Gayatri mantra is the most famous example. As it is the Gayatri mantra in the same alphabet order as it is revealed to Vishwamitra Rishi. Om is revealed to Brahmaji. Namah Shivaya is revealed to Vasishtha, Vamadeva and Kahola. So the mantras are revealed as it is. So that's why they are called as revelations. That's the difference between the orthodox standpoint of the Vedas and if we say science. So if an intuitive insight is there about gravity or about the Archimedes principle, the insight is there in the mind of the scientist. That insight has come. Now the scientist uses his or her medium of language to write it down. What is the orthodox traditional standpoint in Sanatana Dharma telling us? That is not the case. The mantra is revealed as it is. So it is Ishvara Prokta. That's why they call it Ishvara Prokta. Meaning it is universal principle. It is a revelation of the Lord. And also the idea here is that it has stood the test of time. Shruti has stood the test of time. And in that, the Upanishads are the most crucial ones because the essence of Sanatana Dharma is the Upanishads. All the other rites, rituals, etc. are preparations to reach that state. Duties, 4 stages of life, 4 Purusharthas, all that is to come to that final aspect, which is to realize that my nature is Brahman and this whole universe is Brahman alone. This is revealed in the Upanishads. And so when a Shruti Pramana is quoted, we have that much of bhav and reverence. Yes, if the scripture has said it, it is the truth. Also because different masters sitting at different places in different periods of time have got the same revelation. It is not again one person. So different Upanishads have revealed the same truth. Hence the Upanishad Pramana is given here. Which Upanishad is this? Mundaka Upanishad. And what does the Mundaka Upanishad say? Many Upanishads are there. Here in this shloka, Mundaka Upanishad is quoted saying, Brahmai Vedam Vishwamidam Varishtham. That is the quote of the Mundaka Upanishad. So that is partially quoted here also. Brahmai Vedam Vishwam. Iti eva Vani. Iti eva Vani is that, etc. Means Brahmai Vedam Vishwam, etc. That is the mantra that is quoted here. Brahmai Vedam Vishwamidam Varishtham. That Brahman alone is this entire universe. Shrauti Brute Atharva Nishtha Varishtha. So which Upanishad? The Upanishad of the Atharva Veda, which is that Mundaka Upanishad. There are other Upanishads also of Atharva Veda, but here it is referring to Mundaka Upanishad. Shrauti Brute Atharva Nishtha Varishtha. Tasmadetal Brahma Matram hi Vishwam. See, for those who have Shraddha in the Shruti, in the Veda, nothing else they require. No Yukti, no Anubhuti also. And that's why you see at some point in our culture, our earlier generation used to tell that don't ask questions. It is written in the Veda, just believe. Because their faith in the Veda is so strong. Not that Vedas don't give logic, Vedas give proper logic, as well as experiential proof also. But those who have tremendous faith in the Veda, they don't question beyond that. So they don't even need logic. If it is said in the Veda, it has to be true. Not that we don't need logic. Those of us who have an active intellect, who need reasoning, who need to understand the cause, then we ask and the scripture gives also. But at some point in time, when the faith was so strong that they did not care about getting their logic clear, then that faith is not same for somebody else and the logical reasoning is not given, then it appears as though we are doing something, believing something without knowing why. That leads to the decline of the culture. So faith by itself is a very important step, very necessary. We saw that in Shatka Sampatti also, but combined with logic it has to be. And we may have faith, but we should never let go of the logic. Because to convince somebody else, or especially I am taking up a role of a sevak or a teacher, or I'm sharing this knowledge, then I must have both. So the logic was given by Shankaracharya ji in the earlier verses also. Here the Shruti Pramana is given. That this is what the scripture is also saying. So Tasmadetat Brahma Matram hi Vishwam. Hence Brahman alone is this whole universe. You see, in this very shloka, another logic is also given. So many different types of logics are given. Reasonings are given. One logic was the pot and the mud. So effect is nothing but cause in another form. Now the second logic here is what? Now if we say effect is cause in another form, then we are accepting that the cause modified to become the effect. That's the limitation of that example. So in the next example now here it is clarified. Na adhishthanad bhinnata aropitasya. The superimposed is not different from the substratum. So the substratum does not produce the superimposition. The substratum appears as a superimposition. So that limitation of the pot example is negated with this. So then one understands that yes, Brahman has not produced the world. Brahman is not modified to become the world. Brahman is not evolved to become the world. Brahman is only appearing as the world. That's why this example of this logic of the superimposition is not different from the substratum. So this whole world is the superimposition. What is the substratum? Brahman is the substratum, appearing as this. And when we say whole world, it includes the body, mind, intellect of the jiva, the individual sadhak also. Is all a superimposition of that one Brahman, pure consciousness. This is the vision that the Vedantic student must have. That this whole thing is an appearance of that Brahman, because a superimposition does not exist independent of the substratum. Rope is a substratum. Snake is a superimposition. Rope is only appearing as the snake. There is no separate snake apart from the rope. And so in us, there is pure consciousness. That pure consciousness alone is appearing as the BMI. And that itself is the cause of the whole universe also. So this is the second logic. Nadhishthanad abhinnata, nadhishthanad bhinnata ropitasya. Na bhinnata. It is not separate. Now the opposite is used to think. Meaning, now let us say if the world is real, then what will happen? Till now it was said world is not real, it's appearance of Brahman. Logic, different types of logic were given, as well as the Shruti Praman was given. Experiential proof is all the great masters who have experienced it have uniformly declared that there is only one pure consciousness. Nothing else exists. Bhagwan alone exists. So Shruti Yukti Anubhuti proved that Brahman alone is, world does not even exist independent. It exists only as an appearance of Brahman. Now he goes on to say that, okay, suppose I take your argument for real. That yes, the world exists by itself. World is there. Then what will happen? If I say world exists as real, as separate from Brahman, what will happen? See the next verse. Satyam yadisya jagade tadatmanaha anantatvaha nirnigama pramanata asatyavaditvam shitu syat naitatrayam sadhuhitam mahatmanam. He says three flaws will be there. If we say world is real by itself, Satyam yadisya jagadetad atmanaha. If we say this universe is real by it is, then atmanaha anantatva hanihi. That is the first point. What will happen? The infinite nature of the pure consciousness, that will be destroyed. Because consciousness is also real, world is also real. Both are real. If both are real, both become finite, because there cannot be two infinite. Which is why when we say Purna Madaha, Purna Midam, that is Purna, this is Purna, does not mean there are two infinites. There cannot be. What that means is that which is Purna is appearing as this which is Purna. There is only one. So first point that will happen, first consequence is, if I say world is independent and real by itself, I make God finite, which means God becomes perishable. Just like the universe is changing and perishing, every minute it is perishing. God also becomes perishable. But it's only theory, because it cannot happen like that. Because if God also becomes perishable, who is that God? That God is Atma. Interestingly, the word used in the shloka is Atma. Atmanaha anantatvahani. Meaning I will become non-existent. Because that God is in my heart as the pure consciousness. If that God becomes finite, this small, pure consciousness in my heart, that will disappear. Then who knows? The knower can never become absent. Now, drashtuhu viparilopo bhavati. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says that the knower can never disappear, because then who knows what is the knowledge? The knower will always remain. So when we say anantatva hanihi, don't think that okay, some Brahman will become finite and perish. No. Atmanaha anantatva hani. The infinite nature of I, the pure consciousness, the real I, that will go. Meaning the I, the knower, will disappear. If subject disappears, there is the object. Even from grammar standpoint, there cannot be a sentence without subject. There has to be a subject. Otherwise, what is that sentence? For whom is that? So if one understands that clearly, so anantatva hanihi atmanaha. First consequence will be Atma will become perishable and will get destroyed, which is impossible. Second point is Nigama apramanata. What the scripture says, that will become false. Nigama apramanata. Now, pramana means a valid means of knowledge. So, pramana means the valid means of knowledge. So, what is the valid means of knowledge? To see the form, eye is a valid means of knowledge. To hear the sound, ear is a valid means of knowledge. To know about some scientific principle, I should go through the systematic science, the books or the material that reveals. I should go through that. That is a valid means of knowledge to get the knowledge of science. What is a valid means of knowledge to realize Brahman? That which is imperceptible to the body, mind, intellect. The valid means of knowledge is the Shabda Praman, which is the Shruti, which is the Vedas. And these Vedas, as we saw in the earlier words, they are declaring Brahman alone is real. World does not exist. Brahma Vedam Vishwamidam Varishtham. Then how, when we say that world exists by itself, then this valid means of knowledge, which is the scripture, gets negated, becomes falsified. One may say, so what if it becomes falsified? It is not about that. It is about the fact. If a valid means of knowledge gets falsified, then wrong knowledge will arise, which is what is happening in the world. Without using the valid means of knowledge, by one's own thinking, one has come to some conclusion and one is confused oneself and confusing everybody else also, which is a very wrong thing to do, because we will not do that for other subjects, but we will do that for spirituality. Without knowing what is written in Valmiki Ramayana, anything and everything one goes on talking. But one doesn't do that with other subjects. One will go back to the books of science or books of maths or chemistry or whatever it is, management. One will go to that because for them that is a valid means. But the belief that the scripture is a valid means is not there. Shastra Shraddha is not there. So for a wise person here, it is said, Sadhu itam mahatmanam na etatrayam. They do not accept these three. That the scripture cannot get falsified. Yes, our culture has the ability to change by changing times, because the value systems and the human mind evolves. That literature which is bringing adaptability and flexibility in our culture, that is called Smritis. They will adapt the principles of the Shruti to the changing time. That is called Smriti. So there is no question of fanaticism in this culture. If somebody is fanatic in the name of this culture, is because they have not understood the scripture properly. And just like religion has fanaticism, science also has fanaticism. That is called scientific blinder. Even today, there are physicists who will not accept quantum physics. That is scientific blinder. They are still holding on to their own conclusions that matter is real. Quantum physics says, no, it is not real. So that is the limitation of human mind. That is not the limitation of the scripture. So those who understand the scripture properly, they accept that as a valid means and the only valid means to realize that which is transcendental. Across the world, different religions, different scriptures, when they reveal that which is transcendental, that is the valid means to know what is transcendental. So it is that the second possibility. First possibility is Brahman becomes finite, so becomes perishable. Second possibility is that the scriptures will become falsified. If scriptures become falsified, then how to know what is the truth? That is not possible. And the third one, the most difficult, no, not the most difficult, the most terrible consequence is asatya asatyavaditvam api ishituhu. Ishituhu means Bhagwan, God. God becomes liar. Why? Because God is the source. So Ishvara is the source of the Vedic knowledge. If Vedas are falsified, God becomes a liar. Because the source is Bhagwan. The knowledge came from the Lord. Means Bhagwan does not say the truth. Bhagwan is telling lies. Now these three happen. So those people who have clarity, sadhu hitam mahatmanam na etatrayam. Those who are pure minded, those who are sadhu, those who are mahatmas, meaning who have expanded their individuality from selfish to selfless, such people, for them this is not acceptable. See, this is not out of fear, this is out of reverence. And this is out of knowing the reality. One should not consider this shloka as only from a faith standpoint, okay, these people are so blindly hooked on to this that, they don't want their scripture to be falsified, they don't want their God to become a liar, and they don't want the God to become finite. It is not about fanaticism at all. It is out of reverence that this is absurd, illogical actually. How can that which is infinite become finite and perishable? If I say world is real, that is what I am saying. God is finite, world is finite, two finites exist, both will get destroyed. It's so illogical, absurd, because if both get destroyed, who knows that both got destroyed? What is the nature of that knower? If the knower can get destroyed, then there is nothing. It's just a hypothetical possibility, because knower will never get destroyed, because nobody will know then everything got destroyed, because nobody exists. So it's most absurd. And if that first possibility happens, then the other two are the natural consequence of it. That the scripture revealed that the truth alone is. Now that scripture becomes falsified, and the one who revealed the scripture, that God becomes a liar. Very interesting thing is that God will not exist to even be there as to be called as a liar. Because the first point destroys God only, makes him from infinite to finite. So this is the opposite standpoint. Why the world is unreal and why truth is real, that reasoning was given. Now why is it what will happen if I consider the world as real? These three problems will start. In this commentary, if you see the last line, Gurudev's commentary, last two lines if you see, none of the 6 schools of philosophy will accept them. So we have to conclude that the world is unreal. These 3 conclusions, Shad Darshanas in our culture, they will not accept this. Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Purva Mimamsa, Uttar Mimamsa. None of this will consider these 3, that God is finite, scriptures are falsified, and God is a liar. And the best part is, if all these 3 happen, what is the proof that you have that the world is real? Scripture has a proof to say world is unreal. But what is the proof that I have to say that the world is real, and hence these 3 conclusions must happen? If my proof is only my senses, that is the most absurd thing. Because how can senses be the proof to determine what is reality? Senses themselves are limited. What I perceive the world as, a dog or a cat or an ant doesn't perceive the world in the same way. Each one has their own limitation of the senses. So how can senses be the means to know what is reality? So if somebody says world is real, then they should prove to us the world is real. What else is the method to prove the world is real? They will say majority. Majority can believe anything. For a long time, majority believed, and including today, there are many people who believe Earth is flat. The majority doesn't count. It is not a valid proof of determining what is reality. Durability. I slept and I woke up, the same world exists. That is again limitation of the senses to say same world exists. Even in the waking state, the world that we are seeing is not existing. Science is telling us it is 99.9% every atom is empty. If 99.9% atom is hollow, there is nothing inside, it is only blank space. Still I am seeing solid world. That is a limitation of the senses. So in waking state itself, it is constantly changing. This is energy in motion. When I go to sleep and I wake up, it is not at all the same world. It is another world again. And again is a projection only. Just because the items remain the same means nothing. It is a projection. Every, in a cinema theater, in a day there are 5 shows running. Same thing is projected again and again. Just because same thing is projected again and again, it doesn't make it real at all. So reality is not tested by perceptibility, durability, majority, or utility. Something is useful to me, it doesn't make it real at all. I may use a computer to communicate right now. It doesn't mean that the world is real, computer is real. It has a relative reality. That nobody is denying that it has an illusory reality. But it is not absolutely real. Because this relative reality is an appearance of absolute reality. So just because it has a utility value, it doesn't make it real. Because the dream food cannot quench the hunger of the waking state. It may appear to have quenched the hunger of the dream state. But when the waker wakes up, if he went to sleep hungry, he is still hungry only. So the utility is limited to the relative reality. Now, apart from these 4, what is the other method to prove that the world exists independent? There is no other method from what I understand. So then what is the criteria to know what is real? Uncontradictability is the criteria. That which does not change in the past, present, future, that is the criteria to determine what is the reality. Not the senses, not the mind, not the perception, not even inference, logic. Those are supportive means, but they cannot prove that the world is real. But we can use logic to prove it is unreal because the basis is uncontradictability and constantly it is contradicting, it is changing. So this is what the wise people will say, that these 6 schools of philosophy will not accept this. Pure-minded people will not accept. Sadhu was said and Mahatmana. They will not accept these 3 conclusions. Now going ahead, he says, Ishvaro vastu tattvajnaha nachaham teshvavasthitaha nachamasthani bhutani ityevameva vyachi udripata. Ishvaraha vastu tattvajnaha. The Supreme Lord, who is the knower of all the secrets of the universe, or who is the knower of the entire creation, what did that Ishvara say? Nachaham teshvavasthitaha nachamasthani bhutani iti evam eva vyachi kripat. The Lord expressed this very clearly in the Gita, and that is quoted here. So see, the Veda is the Shruti Praman. Mundaka Upanishad was the Shruti Praman that the author gave. Now, this is the Smriti Praman. The Bhagavad Gita is called as a Smriti because it adapts the principle of the Veda to the changing times. So, if somebody says that, oh, these people believe only in the Veda, they are so swearing by the Veda and they are fanatic and they are not willing to change, it is not like that. The universal principle remaining the same, the adaptability in time continues to change. And even certain practices which have gone through decadence, our culture has revived those practices and reinstated the reasoning and the logic and removed the degradation. And it is still going on. That process will be a continuous process because decline and revival keep going on together. So not everybody is at the same level. So that's why the Smriti Pramana also is quoted here. What did Bhagavan say in the 9th chapter of the Gita? He says, so he gives 3 statements. Statement number 1, he says, Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyakta murtina. I pervade this whole universe in my unmanifest form. First statement, I pervade the universe in my unmanifest form. Like the butter pervades the milk in the unmanifest form. If you say, where is the butter in the milk? Everywhere. But why can't I see? It is unmanifest right now. Do sadhana and manifest it. Do the process of churning, etc. and then butter will come out. So in the same way, churn the mind, do the sadhana, reality will manifest. So first statement says that I pervade the whole universe in unmanifest form. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyakta murtina. Matsthani sarva bhutani nachaham teshvavastitah. All the beings are in me, but I am not in them. What does that mean? They are in me, I am not in them. How can the pot say that how can the mud say that all the pots are in me, but I am not in the pot? Now remember, this example is not applicable to this statement here. They are in me, but I am not in them cannot apply to a cause and effect relationship. It applies to a superimposition and substratum relationship. The rope can say, all the snakes are in me, but I am not in them. In what context? To say that the rope alone is real, the snake is not real. If at all you are seeing the snake, it is the rope appearing as the snake. So they are in me. The snake is appearing because of rope. Snake does not exist independent of the rope. But the rope is not producing the snake. By itself, the rope is not producing. So the rope says, I am not in them. And the third statement Bhagavan makes is, Nacha matsthani bhutani pashyame yoga maishvara. Second statement he said, they are in me, I am not in them. Third statement he says, they are not in me. When somebody reads, this is the reason why one has to study the scriptures with some teacher or some commentary, some guidance. If one reads on one's own, one will say, oh Krishna, you please make up your mind. What are you trying to say? First you are saying, I pervade in unmanifest form. Then you are saying, they are in me, I am not in them. Then you are saying, they are also not in me. Then what are you saying? Make up your mind. But they are 3 different standpoints. The highest standpoint, he says, the snake does not exist in me at all. If at all you see the snake, then yes, they are in me. I am not in them. But really speaking, they are also not in me. Snake does not exist in the rope at all. Never it got produced. Only rope is all the time. So in that way, when he says here, Nachaham teshvavastita, they are in me, but I am not in them. Nacha matsthani bhutani, and they are not even in me. That is to say that the world does not exist. Brahman alone exists. So the point we are discussing is that Brahman alone exists. And if we say that the world exists independent, then the 3 above problems will happen, which is not acceptable. So the Shruti was quoted, then the 3 problems, and now the Smriti is also quoted, saying even the Gita is saying the same thing. That world does not exist as different from Brahman. It is only an appearance of Brahman. Full stop. So Shruti is quoted, Smriti is quoted. Now Anubhuti, you see, this is the beauty of our culture. Nothing is made as a blind statement. Logical proof will be given, Shruti's Praman will be given, experiential proof also will be given. Now see the 234, that's the experiential proof. यदि सत्यं भवेद् विश्वं सुषुप्ता उपलभ्यताम् यन्नोपलभ्यते किंचिद अतो तत्स्वप्नवन्मृषा sorry अतो असत् स्वप्नवन्मृषा. My book, that sir is not clear. If it is not clear, you please write it clearly in your book, because otherwise it will look like ta. So the top portion of the printing of the sir is not there in my book. Okay. So yadi satyam bhaved vishwam. If the world is real, sushuptau upalabhyatam. It should be available in sushupti avastha. Why? Because the reality is that which exists in 3 periods of time. Now this is the experiential proof. That reality does not exist in the deep sleep. Sorry, the world does not exist in the deep sleep. If the world was real, having its own independent reality, the world should have existed in the deep sleep. Does not exist. Yanna upalabhyate kinchit. Since it is not even a little bit perceived, ataha, hence, asat swapnavan mrisha. It is unreal and it is like a dream. It is like a dream, meaning while I am living here in the world in the waking state, I may consider this as an illusion. That's all. Because if I can't falsify it as non-existent right now, at least I can think of it as an illusion, because I've given this the reality. I've given the snake the reality, so I say, no, snake is an illusion, because I'm not able to reject it, it does not exist. So this is the experiential proof that if the world was real, the world would have been experienced even in the deep sleep. In fact, not only in the deep sleep, world would have been changeless even in the waking state. Because that's the definition of reality. That which remains changeless in all 3 periods of time. That is real. Waking state itself, the world is changing. Dream, the world changes so much. In deep sleep, the world disappears completely. In dream, a new world is created. Waking state, it constantly changes. And in deep sleep, the world disappears. How is that real then? So this is the experiential proof. So for today, we will stop here. Any questions? You're welcome to ask.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Hari Om.
In Gurudev's commentary, I have this book in Gujarati. In 233 shloka, he has written, પુનઃ ભગવાન કહે છે કંઈ પણ મારામાંથી ઉત્પન્ન થતું નથી, તે બધા ત્યાં પ્રતિમાન છે જેવી રીતે સ્તંભમાં ભૂત. So can you please explain me this? With just it is just like snake and rope, but still, can you please explain?
Yeah, the post is seen as the ghost. So the ghost is an appearance and does not exist by itself in the post. In the darkness, when one is driving and light is less, sometimes the post, lamp post or a tree, it will appear as though it's a ghost. Stambhama Bhut, that is the example there. The post appears as though there is a person there, there's a ghost that is standing, and then there is the fear that comes because the ghost is there. But the fact is, in the post, there is no ghost. It's just an appearance because of whatever play of light is there. So, in the same way, the world is only an appearance. The post is appearing as the ghost. Same way, the world is appearing as, the Brahman is appearing as the world. By itself, it does not exist. So, if one waits and watches there clearly, then there is no ghost. So, that's the example.
Thank you, sir.
Namaste, Swamiji. I just wanted to know that is Karya Karana Sambandha the only way that we can establish Advaita?
Karya Karana Sambandha is not the only way to establish Advaita. Advaita is beyond Karya Karana. Advaita is saying that there is no cause and effect. Cause and effect is used in the world to understand various things, because that's how science operates, using logic, cause and effect. But cause and effect is used to understand that in a certain way only for limited things. As far as Advaita Vedanta is concerned, Advaita Vedanta is very clear. Using cause and effect, we can understand the state which is beyond cause and effect. So cause and effect is not the only way to understand Advaita. Advaita is understood by Shruti and Anubhuti also. No? Mukti is only one means. Shruti Praman is revealing that a Brahman, absolute Brahman exists. That is the real means to know Advaita. That is called Shabda Praman. And second is your own Anubhuti. Aham, aham, aham is there in the heart every moment. That doesn't require any explanation of cause and effect. Each and every jiva feels that I exist. No jiva can ever feel I don't exist. Non-existence cannot be our experience, because to experience non-existence I have to exist. So I is the biggest proof of Advaita, the big I, which is there in my heart, but which right now is appearing to me as small I. So cause and effect is only one method for those people who want logic. So then different logics that we saw, pot and the mud, substratum and superimposition, seer and seen, they are all different types of logics which are given to people who want to understand it logically, because their intellect is active. Otherwise, Shraddha in the Shastra, revelation of the scripture, and Anubhuti, aham, 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 that is the biggest proof.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Swamiji, my question is very practical. I wanted to know, how does the vasanas reduce with sadhanas?
Vasana
Hari Om, Swamiji.
with sadhana, because when I dedicate myself to a higher purpose, I don't encourage the formation of new vasanas. Existing vasanas will get exhausted. If I do Karma Yoga sadhana, that wherever I am put by the Lord, I am playing that role with conscious awareness that I am dedicating this to Bhagwan, not unconsciously, not without any feeling. Just saying work is worship, and going on working is not going to modify. Consciously, I have to feel that this is my offering to Bhagwan. Through the day, the bhav must be of dedication and serving the people, where I am not encouraging self-importance. Then actions which are done with that bhav don't create any new vasanas. Existing vasanas get exhausted. So the vasana pressure on the individual will become less. And that's how the purification of the mind happens.
But what?
Cannot hear you.
Okay, but what about the other sadhanas that chant?
Every
Swamiji?
sadhana, whichever sadhana
Yeah.
you do, chanting, etc. also if you do, what is the basic principle is dedication to the Lord and surrender of the ego, right? So even in chanting that will happen, that I lose my sense of individuality, I surrender to the Lord. Through the chanting, I make the mind quiet, surrender the ego. Then that I am able to carry forward in my life. So then all actions I do with that bhav, again they will not produce any new vasana. So that's how it purifies. The existing vasanas,
Okay.
no new vasana gets created, mind becomes quiet, ego becomes less. And through contemplation on the self, one realizes the truth.
Okay, thank you, Swamiji.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi.